How's it going? My name is Matthew Jacobson. This is Jacobson Sports Network, and I have a phenomenal guest, a very special guest, someone who is trying to bring hockey back to the Valley, one Mr. Thomas Galvin. Thomas, thank you so much for your time.
Matthew, thank you for having me.
So, the first question I just kind of want to get into comes from a friend who said I didn't have to cite him, but we cite our sources here. One Mr. Patrick Brown. He
Okay.
actually wanted he was very curious, wanted to touch on, to the best of your ability to be able to answer, what steps have been taken so far in your efforts to bring the NHL back? And aside from, a spare $2 billion, what are you looking for in an owner? Not just, I know you spoke about it in the past, you wanted someone that appreciates hockey, but just from the business aspect, what are you guys looking for and hoping to get?
Yeah, several good questions in there. Well, to start, I am the chairman of the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors, and Maricopa County is the fourth largest county in the country. We're made up of 4.5 million people here in the valley. And if we were an independent state or wanted compared to the other 50 states, we'd be the 25th largest state in terms of population. This just reflects how big of a region we are and how a lot of professional sports leagues have been interested in Arizona and especially here in the valley. It makes sense. I became chairman in January of this year, 2025, and I announced a lot of things, but I think the one thing that were considered attract a lot of considerable news attention is that I announced I'm forming a committee of members of the public, local community advocates to bring professional hockey back to Arizona. And I had announced that I had met a few times with NHL Commissioner Gary Bettman. It's been an interesting process. And then just last month, I announced that Andrea Doan, who's the wife of Shane Doan, the mother of Josh Doan, but also a great hockey name in her own right, is the chair of our committee. And this committee will has not been fully announced yet, but will be composed of business and political leaders. And we're all going to work together to bring hockey back, but do it in the right way, not a top-down approach, which we have seen over previous ownership groups hasn't done well, but a community-based, widespread approach from the bottom up. The other thing I've told people is that I don't want to overpromise and underdeliver. I do believe this is a years-long process. For your second question, in terms of ownership and an arena, I think we really do need to find a good owner who cares about the valley, who understands the valley and appreciates the valley, and frankly appreciates and respects the great hockey fans we have here in the valley as well. That is important for me as an elected official, is to remind everyone to think of the fans. A lot of times that doesn't happen because sports is big business. And then two, find a suitable location for an arena. I think we all have seen great Coyotes fans, but the location themselves weren't suitable, especially the one out in Glendale. So that's an important piece for me. For me in the business sector, I am a land use attorney. I'm an expert on these issues. So it's really important to me to find the great, best suitable location for an arena.
I also really like that you actually know about the land side of it, and I feel like no matter what arena we've talked about or what site, they've just never had anyone that could figure it out. Case in point, the reports that they didn't even have a zoning attorney, Alex Morello. So I don't know how they expected that to get done, but I guess it just goes to show. And I grew up a massive Coyotes fan. I still am a massive hockey fan. There's way too many jerseys and way too much money that I've spent on this hobby. But growing up, Shane Doan personally was my hero. The funny story is I actually thought his name was my dad's first name because I never could read apparently. But a fantastic, happy accident. One of the best people that I've ever heard stories about, gotten to meet personally. My dad used to work at the arena. He was always incredibly nice
Wow.
to my dad. So just an absolute top human being that represents Arizona hockey well. And I know you've kind of been asked this question over and over, but as someone who values that Doan family name more than most because of what they have done for this valley, I don't think the Coyotes would have been here as long as they were without Shane Doan. How important was it to make sure that any of the Doans in any capacity were involved in this?
Yeah, I have seen this happen in phases. When I became chairman in January, I made that announcement that I'm forming a public committee to bring the Coyotes back to Arizona, pro hockey back to Arizona. I think a lot of Coyotes fans were excited, but a lot of people in the wider community were kind of like, all right, well, let's see how this goes. Then, secondly, when I announced that I had met with NHL Commissioner Gary Bettman, I think a lot more people were like, okay, we're going to raise our eyebrows for that one, but still there was some skepticism. But when I announced last month that Andrea Doan is part of our committee, I think this just shows widespread legitimacy for the effort that I've been doing. the care that I've put into it and the respect I've put into it. Respect not just for the fans, but also for the legacy and the history of the Coyotes here in the Valley. And also, when you meet with people like Shane and Andrea Doan, they're not just lending their name just because, right? You have to prove to them and show them that you're doing it for the right reasons. And I was frankly honored when I asked Andrea Doan to lead this committee and she said yes. So I think that means a great deal. And I also think it was a great deal for news across North America.
And were you kind of, I know you were very kind of shared my opinion to change gears in how your reaction to, let's say, some political individuals or some politicians seemingly celebrating the Coyotes' demise, their relocation. And for me personally, it left a very bitter taste in my mouth. You cited it as one of the reasons you wanted to step up and do something. But just can you speak to, from your perspective, how unrepresentative those individuals are of the actual hockey community and the overall opinion in this state?
Yeah, as someone who's relatively new to politics, I find this industry to be very, very crazy. But secondly, I care about the community. I care about the valley. The whole reason why I got into public service was to give back because it's given so much to me. But in my previous role in the private sector as a land use attorney, I worked on the successful deal that the Suns got with the city of Phoenix to renovate their arena back in 2019. And if you've been to a Suns game, or frankly, have been to a concert or the Harlem Globetrotters, what have you, you have seen that arena downtown looks a lot better than it did 8 years ago. I'm really proud of that effort. That arena is a community owned asset. It's owned by the taxpayers of the city of Phoenix. So we all have a vested interest in making sure that arena is successful. So then you go to the next phase, and we just saw people take pot shots at the Coyotes because, in the short term, it's a good political hit. I saw the previous Scottsdale mayor, Daniel Ortega, just take shots at the Coyotes when they were trying to get that state land next to the city of Scottsdale. It wasn't even not even in Scottsdale. And I thought to myself, why is Mayor Ortega taking shots at the Coyotes instead of, let's say, trying to make a deal or letting them know where he has particular items of concern? But no, he went public with it. And as we saw, that Coyote state land auction fell apart within days after the Scottsdale mayor really trashed it. And so, what I said in my speech in January is that I saw certain politicians take glee in the demise of our hockey team, and I'm going to underline the word "our." The Coyotes were ours. It's a community team. We cheer for our team. We shouldn't be laughing, and especially when the Coyotes get up and leave and go to another state. Arizona's done such a good job of attracting teams to the state. For example, we brought the football Cardinals here, right? We had the D-backs as an expansion team. It's the first time we've ever lost a major professional sports team. And I realized and reminded myself that I am now a public servant. And if there's anyone going to be doing something about it, it might as well be me. Because I didn't step up and hear anyone say, oh, it's a shame we lost at Coyotes. People were frankly laughing about it. I wasn't laughing. I was devastated because I also think it's a reputational hit against the region from an economic development standpoint. So I have considered this an economic development issue in conjunction with it being a sports issue. And I just didn't like seeing, we saw fans crying at the last Coyotes game. I mean, this is something that affected people. And for me to see other politicians in both political parties laughing about it, I thought it was beyond the pale.
I mean, I can attest to that because I obviously I grew up a Coyotes fan. I would not have met my wife, who is now pregnant with our child, without the Coyotes. Even all the dogs that I've rescued wouldn't have them without the Coyotes because I wouldn't have had them without her. So like it just shows it's a small example to show the snowball effect that something like hockey can have. And you touched on a couple of points that I really am glad you brought up. I want to start economic side first. What have you noticed, especially just since you announced this, people coming to you, different business people coming to you? What have you noticed in terms of an economic impact that has been on the valley since the Coyotes left?
It is a hard impact in the economic development aspect for the community. When you go to a Coyotes game, there's thousands of jobs attached to it, not just professional hockey players. There are people that work at the arena. There are businesses that depend on residual economic benefits from the arena. You have secondary markets, you have tertiary markets. When I announced the formation of this committee in January, I was just shocked by how much outpouring of support I received, but also emotional emails from people saying that they had a business that was directly related to the Coyotes and their business suffered when the Coyotes left town. That left a mark on me as well. But also just the community aspect of the tens of thousands of fans who still went to Coyotes games and were great fans because they actually went out to a very hard location to get to in the West Valley. It just showed that they were dedicated. And then secondly, hockey itself is a great sport, and hockey is great for kids, right? We want our kids to exercise. We talk about obesity with kids. This is a great way to get kids healthy and active and doing stuff. We don't want kids on the couch playing video games all the time or watching movies or in front of screens. We want them doing something. And hockey's a great sport, especially in the wintertime when we want people out and about and we're all here in town. You can play hockey here year round. The Valley has produced NHL players in Austin Matthews and in Josh Stone, and we're going to have others. And so that was another important component for me is not just the Coyotes, but the sport of hockey itself and for kids.
And obviously, that's not just lip service because you're working directly with Lindsey Fry and the Matt Schott Foundation, and you guys have already shown that you want that community aspect, and I think that's really important, and I really appreciate that. On the other end of the last line of questioning I wanted to touch on, you mentioned being a part of that Suns arena. You mentioned, how this is an economic development issue. I want to know from just from your opinion, do you think it's wise to learn a little bit about where the previous arena deals went wrong for the Coyotes, and also a good idea to, or sorry, a good asset, excuse me, to have you with knowledge of a successful arena deal to be able to put all this together and have the highest likelihood outcome of getting an arena built?
Yeah, absolutely. And I have more experience dealing with stadiums and arenas because as a county supervisor, now serving in a public official role, I was heavily involved in the deal to keep the D-backs here at Chase Field for decades to come. Chase Field was previously owned under a taxing entity called the Stadium District Authority, which was under county jurisdiction. The county did not own it, but we were running the stadium. All revenue expenses are borne by the Diamondbacks, but Governor Hobbs and the legislature passed a new law this year in which the Stadium District Authority will now come under basically under state oversight, no longer Maricopa County. But this is what's really key. When we see other baseball teams around the United States, what are they looking for? They're not looking to stay in their existing stadium. They are looking for new stadiums. And the one that everyone talks about over and over again is the Atlanta Braves and all the development that they're able to do around Truist Park. The Diamondbacks are willing to stay at Chase Field, which was built in the early 90s and is now literally one of the oldest stadiums in Major League Baseball. And we now have legislation to keep Chase Field around for the next 30, 40, possibly 50 years. Think about how old Chase Field is going to be at the end of that life, at the end of that span, right? So I'm very proud of the fact that I worked very hard on that deal. Once again, a community asset owned by the taxpayers, built by the taxpayers with their dollars. But at the same time, we were able to work with the Diamondbacks to keep them an existing facility, but we're now able to retrofit it for 2025 and beyond. So I bring that to bear. My experience directly working in the Suns arena, my experience directly working with the Diamondbacks in Chase Field, and now I'm bringing that to make sure that we bring a hockey team and whatever new arena that will come out of it will be a world-class, state-of-the-art arena in a good location with an owner, frankly, who has deep pockets, right? There's only billionaires that can buy professional sports teams right now. So if you know anyone, let me know. But those are the two key components, the ownership in the arena. But I have that experience, and the people working in this committee will have that experience as well.
This one might be a bit of a minefield, but a couple things are coming together in my head, and I just want to ask about it to the best of your ability to be able to answer. You mentioned retrofitting, you mentioned your experience with the Suns Arena. Is there any possibility of it being on the table for the downtown arena to be in play or consideration?
I would never take anything off the table at this point. I think we have seen an area where an arena doesn't work for hockey. So I think we can check that one off the list. But other than that, I'm willing to entertain any ideas at this point, especially since we're so early on in the process. I'm a big advocate for downtown Phoenix. I love downtown Phoenix. I think what downtown Phoenix has been able to accomplish over the last 25, 30 years is absolutely remarkable. And think about where everyone points to as the beginning of the renaissance of downtown Phoenix. It's America West Airlines Arena where the Suns played. Suns didn't have to build an arena back then in downtown Phoenix, but they did. And since then, downtown Phoenix has grown and has been successful every single year since then. So I certainly would not cross off downtown Phoenix off the list.
On top of that, back when the Coyotes first came here, I know there were some financial issues with them being a tenant, and that's why they couldn't maximize revenue, but the building was packed. The fans were there, downtown works, and that's, I think, a really good location. I did recently publish an interview with Randy Keating regarding the aftermath of that TED project, and obviously the mayor of Tempe said they would respect that decision. whatever the
Yeah.
voters said. But what is your opinion on just the location of where the TED used to be? And again, you don't want to cross anything off of any consideration of trying to kind of pick up some pieces there.
I'm a fan of something centrally located in the valley. That is my preference, whether it's Phoenix, Tempe, Scottsdale, even one of the Indian reservations we have. Access to highways, access to infrastructure, access to good roads, something that's viable that you know that people will be able to easily access and get in and out of. So, whether it's any one of those cities or jurisdictions, I'm a fan of it. I think you need to be where people are, right? You don't want to be on the outskirts. You want to be in the action, so to speak.
Yeah, and look, I grew up in Glendale, so like I was always at that arena when my dad worked there. There was just not that many people, and I can't personally blame people who live in Scottsdale, have to get up at 6 in the morning to go to work, not wanting to drive an hour and then have to leave in the second period or whatever to get home. It is so important to be somewhere where the people can access it. Um, so I just I'm glad to hear that these locations aren't off the board, even though obviously it's still very early in the process. We're not confirming anything on this interview as to where it's going, but it's just good to kind of see that you guys are looking for sustainability and the right location. I keep getting this feeling, this sense that from the ground up, whether it's involving the Doans, whether it's really wanting to focus on the economic development and the location where everyone can access, from the ground up, you said you want to do it right. You're showing it so far. What do you feel you guys need to keep doing to stay on that path to keep building this right? Because the building blocks, I can see them here, but from your perspective, you know a lot more than me. What do you think you guys need to keep doing?
I think there's a lot of opportunity in terms of location. My biggest concern is finding, frankly, a suitable owner, someone who appreciates the valley. And I said this at the beginning of our chat. Someone who appreciates the valley, appreciates Coyotes fans, and appreciates the sport of hockey. Is not just in it to make a buck, but is in it to invest in the community. And I think that's why having this committee composed of local leaders will do a good job of vetting that and making sure that if someone wants to come in and write a big check to get a team, also knows that they're getting the best community in the world that comes with it and to appreciate what they have. There's a few names that I can think of that I think that do get it, but I think obviously that will be the hardest part. You cannot force anyone to buy an expansion NHL team, right? You have to have someone who's willing to do it. But we also want and deserve an owner who cares about us as a community in the Valley. It's the best place in the world for sports. We do the Super Bowl. We have NASCAR. We have professional teams here. We have the Phoenix Open. It's just a great place. It's thriving. It's growing. Maricopa County is poised for even bigger success over the next 15, 25 years. Kids are loving to play hockey here. We have new ice sheets that are going to be built. This is a perfect opportunity for anyone who's listening to come in and be part of something special. I want to be part of something special.
Obviously, I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but it sounds like what we would need and would be phenomenal for the board, for someone to help work with this, would be a Matt Ishbia type. Because that seems like someone who came in, wrote a lot of checks, has already done a lot for the community, has already viewed everything they're doing in downtown as a partnership. That's kind of like it sounds like you're looking for someone like that.
Well, I
And
think we're actually lucky with the ownership of all three teams. But yes, I'm going to start off by saying that Matt Ishbia has come into the Valley and done it the right way. I think he's been an exemplary owner. I know he cares about the Valley. I believe that the Suns have shown everything that they can to show that they appreciate what they have here. I think they've done a great job with the Mercury. But I know personally that Ken Kendrick has done a lot for the community. Diamondbacks charities are absolutely phenomenal. Actually, at Maricopa County, we appoint people to the Diamondbacks charity board. They, in fact, they could be tooting their own horn. They could be patting themselves in the back. They do a lot of work without asking for any media attention or kudos. And then Mr. Bidwell out in Glendale, I think, has done a phenomenal job. He cares a lot about that stadium. That stadium has done a really good job of attracting the Super Bowl. They put in really good bids, hosting things like the Final Four. And I also know that through the Sports and Tourism Authority, which is at the state level, controls the Cardinals football stadium, that Mr. Bidwell has done a lot for philanthropy and charity as well. And he's very actively engaged and civic minded. I think as far as sports owners goes, if you're going to get a collection of three sports owner families, you probably cannot ask much more, right? And I think other cities would be jealous of the ownership group that we have out here. So, yes, you start off with Matt Ishbia, absolutely. He's just blown me away. And whoever is owning a hockey team, I think, needs to emulate that.
or at the very least, be the exact antithesis to an Alex Morello type. I think we can all agree on that. If you want to look
Yeah,
for
don't be
qualities
like
for an
those
owner.
guys. Yeah,
I
I'll
I
be
want to.
blunt. I'll be blunt. Don't be like those guys.
I completely agree. I want to switch gears a little bit. This was back at your press conference in Scottsdale, kind of really announcing the NHL to Arizona movement. You mentioned ASU hockey. You mentioned it being a joint venture. How important is it for you, since ASU is now the biggest hockey presence in the Valley, to have them on board and them working with you?
First of all, as a hockey fan, if any of you listening have not been to an ASU hockey game, get down there. They are cool. It is a fun experience. I was at the ASU hosted this tournament last month called the Icebreaker Tournament. I was there. It was awesome, phenomenal. Went with my family. What I've tried to do is show that we're integrating hockey at every single level here in the Valley. That's youth hockey, that's high school hockey, that's college hockey with ASU and other colleges here, and then obviously trying to get back at the NHL level. It's really important to me that we're integrating hockey all the way down. And you mentioned Lindsay Fry before. Lindsay Fry is just phenomenal, right? She is royalty in terms of hockey names. And she just cares so much about the Matt Shot Foundation. She cares about youth hockey. She has the most thankless job in sports here in the Valley. Imagine carrying on a legacy of a sport after the professional team is gone, and she hits it hard every single day. And frankly, I'm honored to have done that event with Lindsay and with those kids. And I think once again, I just want people to show that I care about this hockey as a sport. I care about Coyotes fans, and I just want to do it the right way because I'm a fan myself. And I was very frustrated to read in the newspaper or watch on TV how things unfolded the last few years. And I'm just honored to be part of this process.
And you touch on how those things went down the last couple of years. Just what are just a couple of things that you're like, I'm taking this and I'm just going to do the exact opposite that you saw out of the previous ownership.
Number one, don't take fans for granted. And number two, don't assume anything, right? I think the Coyotes assumed or felt entitled that they're going to win that land at the state land auction. And that was a shambolic effort on their part. They never even made it to the auction. The auction got canceled 2 days ahead. Build community support, show people what you're doing, but also explaining why you're doing it. And people forget many times in politics and in business and in sports the why aspect. And as you have seen in all of my interviews, I always tell people why I'm doing what I'm doing.
And I think it's important to be transparent in that regard. Just how important is it for you to want to be as open and honest, and also that I don't know if you would call it a motto or a mantra that you've said multiple times, under promise, hopefully over deliver.
I see this as a years long process. We're not getting a hockey team tomorrow. We're not going to see a team skating on the ice next season. But as long as people see that there's a sustained effort, a smart effort, and an effort with a plan, there's a short term plan, a medium term plan, and a long term plan. I think people will be paid off for their patience eventually. I hope.
And so far, would you say you guys are on track for the short-term goals at the very least?
Yes, everything we have done this year is how I planned it out in January.
I love that you bring up January. I wanted to ask about that too. You mentioned how you spoke with Gary Bettman, and this is already you've been doing this work for about a year now. What's a couple things that you've learned? Were you kind of surprised by some things, and just what is there a sense of reward, essentially, like pride in what you're doing so far?
Not surprised, but an expression of gratitude to Gary Bettman for always believing in our market. Excuse me. And I think Coyotes fans are probably the only fans that don't boo him whenever he makes a public appearance at an arena. But I think Gary Bettman deserves a lot of credit. I specifically remember him flying down here and personally testifying at a Tempe City Council hearing. He didn't have to do that. He could have sent his lawyers, could have sent his staff, but he personally came down here, and I think all Coyotes fans know that Gary Bettman invested in the Valley and believes in the Valley, and I share that belief with him. But also a gratitude to him for taking those meetings with me, listening to me, hearing the plan that I had. Because frankly, if a politician is calling Gary Bettman, he doesn't have to take that meeting, and two, he doesn't have to give them an attaboy or terms of like, good luck and go get them. So I'm grateful for that. But also, Gary Bettman believes in the Valley for the right reasons. He gets it, and I'm grateful to him for that.
And We've been asked a couple times about other cities, and you've been pretty consistent how you're focusing on this city, you're focusing on this market, and I think that's the correct approach. Would you agree that you right now Phoenix is competing with itself, not with any other cities for expansion?
I only care about Phoenix. Obviously, I'm paying attention to other cities. I have seen some other cities do things that I don't agree with or I think would probably be ultimately successful. But in the end, they could maybe turn it around and be successful. I'm just worrying about the task in front of me, and I'm just worrying about the community where I live, where I'm raising my family. And I just want to see an NHL team back in the Valley. That's it.
And that's the end goal. Hopefully, we'll have that. Uh, my running date is always going to be 2030, but uh, the NHL, that's the end goal. That's where we want to be. Currently, we have youth hockey that there's been so many great efforts by Lindsey Fry and the Matt Shaw Foundation to try to keep that going. There's been a couple other like the Vegas Golden Knights coming in and helping out. So youth hockey right now is stabilizing. We have high school hockey that seems to be growing and really competitive. You have college hockey with ASU, even the women's program is getting even better. The one pillar that is a little questionable right now, minus the NHL, would be a minor league presence. We have the team in Tucson. There's some question marks in there that I'm not going to expect you to have an answer for that. But is there any interest mulling around, even a couple shreds of conversations about getting a minor league team up here in the Valley to try to help service that market while we're waiting for an NHL team?
Never say never, but my goal is an NHL team. That's the focus.
So you're going for the Grand Slam. All right. I can appreciate it. I don't really have any other questions, so I just kind of want to leave it a little open for you. Is there any messaging? Is there anything that you feel you haven't had a chance to say yet that you would like to say? Please speak
No,
freely.
all I ask is for patience and for people to know that I'm devoting everything I can to help out.
There you have it. I appreciate you so much for your time. Sorry this went a little long. I ended
It's
up having
okay.
more
I
questions than I
enjoyed it.
thought. And hopefully we'll get to see hockey in the Valley relatively soon. And any opportunity I have to speak with you, I would absolutely love to sit down and chat with you more.
Thank you, Matthew. I had fun.